And even though I'm out there preaching about executive disability plans a lot of the time for highly compensated employees, we always want to start reviewing the group LTD layer. And that's an important layer of coverage. I'm never knocking it as bad coverage. It's great. And it's really there to provide cost effective, cost efficient, broad coverage for all employees at a company. There are a lot of levers or bells and whistles within that group LTD contract that you really want to make sure are set up right, depending on the client and their industry, occupations, those things. So I do a deep dive and make sure that there's, nothing in the contract language that would be something that could become a surprise if there was a claim, right? So we really want to do a deep dive into that, into the group LTD. And that's something that a lot of benefits consultants probably just renew based on premium price, and they don't look at all of those features.
Welcome to the Rockstars Rocking podcast, powered by Voluntary Disruption, a show dedicated to people who are crushing their business and life goals. These are bite-sized conversations with leading rock stars in their respective industry who are pumped to share their story to help drive you to the next level. So, are you ready to rock? Speaking of rock stars, here's your host, Eric Silverman.
Hey, rock stars, welcome back to another episode of Rockstars Rocking, where you know it. I say it each and every time we have an episode. I only invite and only have and will only have the finest, the best, the most incredible rock stars rocking, doing well in their business, their life, hitting their goals, achieving greatness. And this week, I promise you, is no different. Everybody, please help me welcome my good friend, colleague, and partner, because we do some business together, Mr. The One, the Only, probably doesn't even need an introduction, right? How about this for a hype up? You like that, Grayson? Grayson Owen, excuse me, S. Grayson Owen. We're going to get to that S very shortly. Grayson is a disability insurance wholesaler. I know that sounds so sexy, right, everybody? Just look at this guy. He is a disability nerd. I am a benefits nerd. He is a disability nerd. He's an expert, and he's over at DI Broker East. He hails from the greater Savannah, Georgia area. What's up, Grayson?
Eric, thanks for having me.
Oh man, I'm super pumped to have you. It's been a long time coming. I appreciate you being patient with my schedule. Full disclosure, I've had to reschedule Grayson a couple times because I don't know, maybe I'm just a bad guy. I hope not, but whatever. Hey, we're here now, and that's what matters, right?
That's right. Let's rock and roll. And Eric, longtime listener of the show, you have a great podcast, and really honored to be here. So thanks for having me.
Oh man, flattery gets you everywhere, so I appreciate it. Listen, Grayson, I want to start with something super basic, right? Because if folks, I encourage you to please check Grayson out on LinkedIn. He's very active. He's been recording videos for quite a while. I'm going to talk about his presence and the way he's grown his market share as well. But Grayson, what's the S, man? What is the S dot Grayson? Since I've known you now many years, we've enjoyed food and beverage together. We've gone to Orioles games. I don't think I've ever asked you what the S stands for. Why are you so afraid to share your first actual real name as opposed to this Grayson nonsense?
That's a great question, Eric. So my parents thought it'd be a good idea to have me go by my middle name, Grace. And the S actually stands for Stephen, which is a name I share with my father, Stephen with a PH, by the way. But I did decide to continue with my middle name, Grayson. I prefer that name, and it kind of just stuck. And for whatever reason, all the guys on my mom's side of the family go by their middle name as well. So it kind of became a trend, I guess, in the family inadvertently. And here I am, S. Grayson Owen, a confusing name for the insurance industry because whenever your name's out there on a contract or policy or anything like that, it'll show up for me as Stephen Owen. And a lot
Sure.
of times people will say, "Hey, who's that?" Right? So
Right.
Stephen Grayson Owen. I don't want to go by three names, so I just go by Grayson Owen.
I tell you what, though, Grayson is a lot better because it's more sophisticated, it's more debonair. You don't, it fits your personality and your stature and your physique perfectly, might I add. But it's not as common either, so nobody's gonna
Right.
nickname you Steve or Stevie or what have you. So I like it. I appreciate you doing a little inside scoop, giving us the exclusive because I don't think you talk about that very often. So look at that. That's a Rockstars Rockin' industry exclusive. Grayson,
Yep.
how did you get into the boring old insurance employee benefits industry? I don't want to bore people listening with a 20 minutes on it, but just generally speaking, like, did you just wake up as a little boy one day and you said, Mama, I want to sell insurance. Is that what came out of your mouth? Was it a lifelong dream, right? You went to West Virginia University to party and learn how to sell insurance. Is that the story behind it? Or you tell me, you clarify.
So great question, Eric. And I went to class in college, so I just wanted to clarify that point there. But actually, it is related to WVU. I had some alumni contacts that I knew. One who was um, particularly successful in the Pittsburgh area, who in my last couple of years in college brought myself and a couple other of my friends up to his office and kind of shared, hey, this is what a career in insurance looks like. And whether or not he was going to ever hire me was yet to be seen, but he just took the time to share this career path. And he kind of, if I recall correctly, kind of stumbled into the insurance agency himself. So that's why he felt, kind of a duty to share that with alumni that he connected with. So I always took that to heart and always saw myself kind of saying, okay, insurance industry is kind of unique. It's really all about paving the way for yourself and creating whatever type of practice you want to be able to create to serve any type of client you wish to serve. And so I really liked all of the things I was hearing and really focused when I graduated college looking just at insurance related opportunities. So I absolutely, like most people, stumbled into it because somebody introduced me to the idea, but it was never a lifelong plan at all. And in fact, Eric, I think I mentioned this to you one other time, and that is I actually spent most of my youth, probably from age 12 to 16, really wanting to actually be a rock star. I did play bass guitar in a couple bands, nothing serious, but I actually wanted to be a rock star. And between the ages of 16 and probably 21 or so, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew it was going to be business related, but did not know it would be insurance till the tail end of college.
Rockstar Grayson Owen. Look at that. That could have been an entirely different interview had you gone down that road. Perhaps our paths might not have crossed. Perhaps I'd be asking for your autograph even more than I do now when I see you. Grayson, you over the last I don't, you tell me, but I feel like over the last many months, maybe it's been a year, I don't know, maybe it's been more, but definitely over the last many months, the LinkedIn social media algorithm has been showing me more and more and more of your content. And those of you that are listening are well aware that, there's friends of yours that post every day and you wouldn't even know it because for whatever reason, the algorithm doesn't show you. So I don't know about you, but I've gone to friends of mine who used to be active and I'll be like, hey, I haven't seen you on LinkedIn anymore. Well, would you stop? And then I go to their profile page and see that they haven't stopped at all. In fact, they've doubled down. So in your case, again, I don't know how long it's been, but I have just seen constant feed after feed after feed of your videos and images and descriptions of the importance and need for executive disability and such. So I want to talk about actual insurance and benefits. I believe that we have a huge broker audience that is missing the boat when it comes to helping their customers and themselves pocket wise with respect to executive disability. But in general, what tell me the journey you've been on for getting your name and your brand, your personal brand out in the marketplace? Because I like it. You're doing great, man. Please keep it up.
No, I appreciate that and great question. I've actually been fairly active on LinkedIn for probably over 2 years now, but that algorithm is tricky. So I have experience similar to you where a lot of my connections that I used to see every day, I'll only see every once in a while now, but they are posting every day. So it is an odd algorithm, but I feel like they change it every so often anyway, so it just changes things up. Um, I try not to pay attention to the algorithm at all. I
It's
don't
not
know if I'm,
predictable. You just got to keep on going. That's for sure.
yeah, way above my pay grade in marketing for that. But really the main purpose behind it, Eric, is in my world, we're in such a niche market in the insurance industry that we have to constantly remind brokers and advisors of the importance of individual disability planning, whether that's for personal income protection, executive benefit, as an executive benefit, or also business planning products for business owners. And if myself and my competitors aren't out there reminding brokers and advisors constantly, a lot of that work's not going to get done. As you know, clients have so much on their plate, and the brokers that serve them have so much on their plate as well. So it's tough to keep that as an item on the agenda. So it's our job to constantly remind. So that's really the purpose on why I do the posts that I do. They're not to draw in any immediate sales. It's literally just to be there as an education resource for brokers
Aware.
and
You just
trying to
remind.
stay top of mind. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what's and again, my bad, right? Damn algorithm. I didn't realize it's been 2 years, and I've certainly known you longer than that. But what light bulb in your head went off that allowed you to say, you know what, this is a very niche industry. It's one thing for somebody, in my case, like I specialize in disability and other alternative non-medical benefits, but I'm not an expert in executive disability. So I thought I had a fairly niche world. But in your case, it's even more hyper focused. So where did the idea come from? Because there are a lot of carrier reps, and I know you're not, and nor am I. And there's a lot of brokers and wholesalers and independent folks out there, and salespeople, agency owners that also feel like they have something neat to talk about, but they haven't stepped up to the plate and swung the bat yet. They're a little shy or nervous. So what? And that's fair. What got you to say, you know what? I'm going to throw a caution to the wind. Screw it. I don't care what it looks like or what people think. I'm just going to go put myself out there. Where did that come from? And just big picture, what has that resulted in? Do you believe it's been worthwhile? Because you're still doing it here 2 years later.
So great question. So I became a wholesaler at the very end of 2019, right before COVID happened. And leading up to that, I spent almost 10 years on the broker side. And I kind of jumped around a lot in different areas of the broker side, starting out really selling life insurance, long-term care, some DI, dabbling in employee benefits, and then really transitioning more to the employee benefits side towards the end of that decade. And I actually had a mentor and a client who had a long-term disability claim towards the end of that time as a broker. And I kind of had a fork in the road at that point. It was probably like 2018 to 2019. And a lot of I was following a lot of employee benefits brokers who were really diving into the self-funded market. And I was starting to learn about that. I hadn't had any clients in that space. I really served the small business market for the most part. And I kind of told myself, I said, I either need to go figure out this self-funded healthcare employee benefit specialization, or I need to go do what I'm passionate about, which is DI planning, disability insurance planning. I just felt it in my heart. And I really didn't have a network to go learn the self-funded specialization from, like exists today. It seems like there's a very welcoming community of innovative specialists throughout the US that are more than willing to help, right? I didn't know those people back then. Otherwise, maybe I would have taken a different path. I don't know. But my heart really told me at the time that I need to go pick up the phone and call anybody I know that does individual DI and go focus on that. And so that's what I did. And luckily, Esker and Associates, DI Broker East, they had an opportunity for me to start serving as a regional sales partner in the Mid-Atlantic and eventually the Southeast. And now I'm national to serve as a disability insurance wholesaler. But when I joined at the end of 2019, to your question here, is that COVID happened. And we actually crossed paths in Ryan Miller's Broker Excellence course. And I actually was fine tuning my kind of process in that course. But one of the things that was standing out was, hey, I need to go build broker relationships, and kind of the world's kind of shut down. Nobody's meeting. It's all virtual right now. And Ryan actually was a very integral part in um, you know, uh, uh, basically telling me, hey, you need to go put yourself out there and tell your story. You're very passionate about this. You've just got to do it. And so I would say Ryan, and also coaching support from Andy Neary, those two, working with both of them as coaches, that's what it took to push me off the ledge, to feel comfortable and confident enough to hit post often. And I'll tell you this right now, I was really only hitting posts once a week, maybe every other week when I started, and I would, work my confidence up to do more and more. And I had great feedback from the get-go, so that was great. But it was one of those things that, a lot of people out there, maybe some listeners, just don't know if it's the right thing to do, or they don't feel comfortable doing it. And I would just encourage everybody, go out there and tell your story, hit the post button, and just go slowly if you need to. But the quicker you do it, the better it will be for your business. And it really does help you attract the right community and network.
So here you are, you've been doing it for a couple of years. You're certainly not doing it for celebrity. And I don't say that as a joke, meaning I've talked to you. I know you don't care. You're not focusing on how many likes and comments you get. Really, it's just more awareness. Continue to publish out the information, which is what I do as well. It's been a couple of years. Have you garnered appointments and potential customers and relationships and connections and new community members based on them saying, "Hey, I've been watching your content. You make some good points. We should connect because there might be some opportunities." Has that happened to you? Because that's always, let's just face facts here. We're all looking to feed our families, so there is an end game. There is a reason why we want that awareness, not just the altruism in our hearts. That's great. Disability is important. We're the first to talk about it, but we do have families to feed. So what has, not specific, but what has been accomplished since a couple of years worth of consistency?
Great question, Eric. So there's kind of two different paths there. One would be, I have had the opportunity to connect with brokers and advisors, benefits consultants that I've never known in my life, who have reached out. And sometimes that results in business. Other times it just results in me helping and kind of just pointing them in the right direction, right? So that has been eye-opening, just the outreach that I've received. And I welcome that, even if it means we're not going to do business. I love, just making the connection, right?
Sure.
And then separate of that is the brokers and advisors I'm already working with that are connected to me. They pick up the phone and call me even more often than a new connection will, and they'll say, "Hey, I just saw your post on, disability buyout insurance. I have a client that we need to talk to about that." So back to that, professional reminder. That's really what it's there for as well. It's education, but it's also to remind brokers and advisors to keep this as a item on the agenda. So it kind of has a dual purpose there, right? It's not only to attract potential new business, right? But also to help those I'm already supporting in their new business efforts, to remind them of these strategies that are out there.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, social media, and there's a lot of our advisor colleagues, connections, friends, partners that have started to dig in on TikTok and Instagram Reels and all the other platforms as well, and LinkedIn for sure. The reality is they're all the same in that they're all providing, for the most part, a free billboard. So it's hard for us to argue the algorithm. So when it sucks that, not everybody I'm connected with sees my stuff every day. Exactly, but you're not paying for it, right? And even if you pay the small LinkedIn upgrade, whatever, $60 a month for the whatever they call it, the premium service, which I do recommend, side note, that's almost free. Let's just call a spade a spade. It's not much money. And then the other programs, of course, the TikToks of the world, there's no money to post on their platform, so you got to deal with their algorithm. But all it is a free commercial. That's all it is. You're literally posting yourself, being yourself, as Ryan, our buddy, would say, Ryan Miller, be authentic. And you're talking about, I've seen on your feed before, you've posted pictures of your adorable daughter. You've posted pictures of just about anything and everything you can imagine, including disability. people do business with people they know, like, and trust, people that they can relate to, right? So that's what you're doing works. And I just encourage folks that are listening that, and sadly, there are more people listening that don't do what you and I do than do. And I don't mean disability, I just mean getting out there and putting their name out there.
Yep.
That is the key to building that community. And you will, if you're playing the long game, it will pay off. So let's dive into some actual DI talk. So let's nerd out for a minute, right? Specifically on your side. So I am a huge believer in disability insurance, short-term, long-term group disability. I've been in this business now 25 years, specializing in that as well as the other non-medical benefits. But I've never been in or sold quote unquote IDI, individual disability or executive disability, or disability buyout insurance, key person disability, any of that stuff. That's not my lane. I like to practice what I preach. So I want a medical broker that can do the stuff I do to realize they should bring me in as the subject matter expert. And I'm no different than what I preach. I could do what you do, but I would rather bring in a subject matter expert to share in the customer and the client, give them the best service and advice, and then potentially share in some revenue as well. What are some, and it doesn't have to be three, but I always like to look at it as far as threes. What would you say are some of the top three, or what would be the top three, maybe even five biggest mistakes that you see business advisors in the benefits world, folks that specifically focus on medical, and folks even like myself that they just forget about and don't think about leaving their customer truly exposed and not protected?
So I would say the main three that I come across are going to be reviewing the group LTD that's already in place, right? So that's really where we want to start. And even though I'm out there preaching about executive disability plans a lot of the time for highly compensated employees, we always want to start reviewing the group LTD layer. And that's an important layer of coverage. I'm never knocking it as bad coverage. It's great. And it's really there to provide cost-effective, cost-efficient, broad coverage for all employees at a company. There are a lot of levers or bells and whistles within that group LTD contract that you really want to make sure are set up right, depending on the client and their industry, occupations, those things. So I do a deep dive and make sure that there's, nothing in the contract language that would be something that could become a surprise if there was a claim, right? So we really want to do a deep dive into that, into the group LTD. And that's something that a lot of benefits consultants probably just renew based on premium price, and they don't look at all of those features, right? They're just saying, hey, the rate's the rate. We got a 2-year rate or 3-year rate guarantee where it's on cruise control. Everything's good. Well, if something isn't good or something was off there, you want to find that out ahead of any claims and make those fixes. So number one is review the group LTD plan. Number two is if you have high income earners, highly compensated employees, or even if it's just one business owner that makes above that group LTD monthly maximum, that's where you really bring in that IDI, individual disability insurance conversation. If it's just one owner, let's say of a privately owned business, maybe it's an S corporation, they have a large K1, which is a form of compensation, a distribution at the end of the year that they would take, that let's say that that's uncovered. Well, then perhaps they need to go get fully underwritten individual disability coverage. Or if there's also 10, 20, 30 executives along with that business owner that are way above that group LTD coverage cap, we could then go to the carriers and try to get what's called a guaranteed standard issue, or GSI, offer, which would allow for little to no underwriting, and you could install individual DI solutions for those highly compensated employees over and above the group LTD. So we would add to the group LTD by adding a second layer of individual DI coverage. We wouldn't take away from it. So there'd be 2 layers of coverage in that instance. And then the third area that is very much overlooked in the benefits world is business planning. So if you have multiple owners at a company, they probably have a buy-sell agreement. A lot of times that is funded with life insurance if an owner dies. But if they become totally disabled, they could have a similar liability. They could be facing a similar financial liability, right? And removed from the business. And there could be a clause in there that says that a buyout has to occur. But where do they get the money from to facilitate that buyout? And so a lot of times, insurance advisors, benefits consultants will use disability buyout insurance to help with that funding for the buy-sell agreement if there's a total disability. There's some other business products out there like key person disability, business overhead expense, things like that. I won't dive into the weeds on those now, but the main things are review your group LTD. Does it make sense to consider an executive disability plan? And are there any business planning disability risks that we need to review and consider some of these business DI products for?
So give me a breakdown. I'm a in my example here, not reality, but I'm a health advisor, health broker, health consultant. I have fully insured cases. I have self-funded, level funded. Doesn't matter. I'm a health guy, right? I claim to know it all with respect to short-term, long-term dental, vision, and any other non-medical you can imagine. But the reality is, I'm a broker. I admit that I don't know all the specifics and the mechanics behind it. Is there like a I don't know, like I look at video games when I was growing up. Is there a cheat code or a pro tip that you can give a broker when they're analyzing an employer group census and they're about to shop the market for short or long-term disability and or both, and they just want to get a quick thumbnail sketch of whether or not there's some opportunity where they should be calling Grayson?
Yeah, so a couple different ways you could look at that. One would be to become well versed enough to understand, find the opportunities and just kind of eyeball a census and say, hey, I think there's a gap here. I should probably loop in the carrier or wholesaler that I work with that does IDI plans just to see what
How
we
do
can
they
come
know
up
there's a
with.
gap though? Because what I found too, a lot of brokers, and maybe it's just poor training among the carrier world. I know there are a lot of group carrier reps that should point out the gaps, and they should introduce the broker to the IDI team within their carrier if there is one. Usually there is, but they don't. They're running a mile a minute. They're doing thousands of quotes a month every year. What's something that as a broker, I don't want to rely on the carrier. What's something as a broker I can look for within a census to identify some quick gaps vis-a-vis what I'm asking the insurance company for quote wise versus what I see that's already on the census?
So one of the most common group LTD plan designs that I see is 60% up to 10,000.
Okay.
So we're looking at the census, and let's say that it's all that is organized from highest paid to lowest paid. If you go to the census and anyone's earning over 200,000, you know that they have a gap. And that's without even getting into taxability. If it's employer paid group LTD and it's taxable benefits, they're going to have an even larger gap there.
Right.
So that's an easy way to you have to kind of back into that number. So 60% up to the cap. So if it's always going to be, if you hit the cap, then you're never going to have 60% if you're hitting the
Right.
cap first, right? So we really want to kind of back into what that threshold is, and that's the easiest way to eyeball it. A lot of times this group LTD is covering salary only. So if you have employees that have other forms of compensation like bonus, K1, commissions, if those forms of covered comp are not covered by the group LTD plan, that either needs to be updated or reviewed, or if the client doesn't want to provide that, that's another opportunity where you could potentially go to the IDI market and see if you could ensure that incentive compensation as part of the IDI coverage. So we have a lot we can look at there, but to answer your question, I would figure out, hey, what's the group LTD plan? Is it 60% to 10K? And then find what that income threshold is and see how many folks are underinsured, and definitely rely on your carriers or BGA wholesalers like myself and others out there. We're more than willing to take a quick look at that. It probably takes us less than a few minutes to dive into a census to tell you what we're looking at.
Yeah, I that's what I wanted you to kind of get to, right? So I appreciate you picking up what I was laying down, my friend. The reality is brokers don't always look at it that way, and they just see a census, they send it out, and too often, more often than not, I see literally with groups, whether it's a small group or a mega sized group with thousands of employees. Oftentimes, we find that when it comes to shopping the long-term disability and any of the benefits, it's just one broker after the other, literally shopping what the other broker put in 30 years ago. Nothing's changed, nothing's been updated. If you're, I'm not going to name carriers. If you're with one carrier 10 years ago, you switch to another carrier 2 years later and another one 2 years later. Here we are 10 years later, and we're shopping it again because the rates went up. It's always about the rates. Nobody's ever taken a pen and a pencil and a spreadsheet and gone through it directly to see the gaps and identify the holes and truly be an innovative consultant the way that I want to be, the way that you want to be. And that's the key, right? Is making sure that that you can identify those holes and gaps. And the census is just an easy way to do it, because when you're looking, and I see it, I just had one a little while ago. It wasn't a lot. There wasn't executives or owners making incredible amounts of money. That's not what it was. It was the masses were on an old, outdated 60% to 5,000 long-term disability plan, which is half of what you said. And that's not going to help anybody. It's going to have them severely underinsured if and when they need it. So just in that case, moving them to a $10,000 60% plan, that really truly covered the vast majority of the entire population. And it wasn't much of an increase. It wasn't much of a difference. And I asked the health broker, I asked the HR professional, I said, how come nobody's brought this to your attention? And they said, I don't know. We've had brokers, we've had carriers, nobody's ever brought this up. And that, as a broker and advisor, I'm sure you'd agree, is a way that you differentiate and frankly make your customers more sticky to you as their consultant when you're partnering with a guy, in this case, seriously, a partner like Grayson, who can point that stuff out. You guys are making your business more sticky to keep the clients, and then ultimately more attractive to win new business when you're pointing out things that other consultants should be pointing out, but aren't pointing out.
Yeah, I think I'll just add one other thing here, Eric,
Yeah.
is that it's astonishing, but it's very prevalent that employers a lot of times have no idea how their group LTD functions. So to your point there, if a client has a 60% to 5K plan that was put in 10 years plus ago, maybe it worked back then, but it's not working now. And in their mind, they might remember the 60% income replacement. They might not remember there's a 5K cap, right? The maximum is 5,000 a month. So you don't want to find that out when it's too late and somebody's experienced a long-term disability, and then they find out, wow, they went from making $500,000 gross to now only getting 5,000 a month or 60K a year. That's a lifestyle change in and of itself. And they might not have been aware of how that functioned either. So it all comes back to education. And my process when I work with brokers is I help them inform their clients. And once their clients are informed, it allows them to make a decision if they want to fix the problem or make any changes now, later, or never at all. But you have to inform the client so that way, they're able to actually make a decision if they deem it appropriate to fix any coverage gaps.
So Grayson, as we start to wind up here, lightning round. What is a way that you can help a broker, an advisor, consultant who specializes in group medical, and totally they're not stupid. They understand there's some gaps, big gaps that they should be helping their clients with. What's a way that you can help them win new business? Like, I'm a broker and I call you up, I'm like, Grayson, I got this prospect. We're trying to win the medical and all the other non-medical benefits. How can you help me bring to them something that they've never heard of, that they're not familiar with, so we collectively can win the case to differentiate from any other advisor or broker team that's there and or trying to win that business? What's a way that you help brokers win new business?
So when it comes to executive DI plans, I have a analysis process, the executive disability broker toolkit is pretty much what I've named it. And it really allows me to take a snapshot of where the client is from a disability coverage standpoint as what the employer is currently offering and where the gap is, and then solutions on how to fix the coverage gap if that's what they choose to do. And then in terms of interacting with the broker, I can be there in a wholesaler capacity where I'm providing this support and I'm on client facing calls, or I can, build this out for them and they can present it without me being involved at all.
Sure.
And then some advisors prefer that I'm involved 100% of the time, and I'm even running the servicing on the accounts as well. And we call that the broker split, as I'm sure you're aware of. And that's really where I'm actually acting as a broker jointly with the actual benefits consultant or broker. It just allows me to interact with the client. So we have several different approaches there, and we just cater to whatever the benefits advisor or insurance broker needs us to do.
So, look, man, anybody looking to reach out to Grayson, please do yourself a favor. He's a good dude, family man. He's originally from the Baltimore area, even more in Baltimore than me. I'm actually from the DC area, so he's a Baltimore Orioles fan. And he doesn't follow it as much as I think he should, but he always has me to lean on. Reach out. He's not hard to reach. You can find him right on LinkedIn. We'll have a link in the show notes, of course. S. Grayson Owen, disability insurance wholesaler over at DI Broker East. There's really not a part of the country he can't help you with, him and his team and his colleagues. So don't let the name East fool you. I've gone to him with questions and clients all over the country, and he can help me figure out whatever I need figured out. Grayson, you live in the greater Savannah area. I'm super pumped. This will probably air right around or right after my birthday. My birthday's later this month, but later this month, September, I'm taking the family to a Savannah Bananas game. They're playing up in Philly. They rented out the whole Citizens Bank Park, and it's a sellout. It's a lottery to get the tickets. I still want to fly to Savannah and go to the actual home field, which I know they named after you, literally, which you can tell people if they don't already know. But have you been to the Savannah game yet?
I have. I've been to one Savannah Bananas game. It is Grayson Stadium. It was not named after me, although I wish
think
it
it was.
was. But no, just a great organization. Yeah, I was lucky enough. I've been to one game, but they sell out so quickly. I've only been able to go to one. So I've been trying to get you a ticket, man. It's been a couple of years. So
That's
one
all right.
day,
Well,
one
I'm
day.
gonna see him later this month with the family. It's gonna be a blast, no doubt.
Good.
But I know we're in a good time. I still want to come down and see. I don't think there's anything quite like seeing a home game at the original park. In this case,
Yep.
Grayson Stadium with Grayson in Savannah would be pretty epic. Listen, man, I appreciate you coming on. I really do. For everybody listening, I appreciate you tuning in as always. Again, if you're not connected to Grayson, please do yourself a favor and change that immediately. And look, dude, I say it all the time. I just show up and ask some fun questions and really just have a conversation, but I don't do anything after the fact. So, I have an amazing editing team that will try to make us both look a little bit prettier than we ought to be. So for everybody behind the scenes at the Rockstars Rocking podcast, I'm Eric Silverman. That was, and always will be S. Grayson Owen. Until next week, don't just have a great day, make it a great day. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Rockstars Rocking podcast. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. And if you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. 5 stars would totally rock. Until next time, Rockstars, keep rocking.